Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I am a song singer, and if you remember, Miss, very good. And actually, I listened to her whole presentation because I said, oh, I don't know what she's going to say. Our experiences were very different, but had many similarities, and I didn't want to. You have to listen to it and then have to listen to it all over again. But I think God worked it all out, and I think you're going to be good. So, welcome. And 안녕하세요 is a common greeting in Korean, and that's just like saying hi, hello. It's kind of formal. It's not, waving to your friends. And does anybody remember what Mrs. Maitland said the name of their traditional dresses? Go ahead first, and then.
No, I'm thinking of the wrong thing.
Anybody else want to try? Yeah, hanbok. And this is of course what the ladies wear. The gentlemen wear something that's it's more or less the pants and a jacket, and it's similar to this. I mean, it's very loose and flowing. I put this on, and my husband looked at it. She says, "You're pregnant," and so it's it's like a wedding dress for the gals. It has a little crinoline under it, and then underneath that it has the stiff stuff. And so it is like a wedding dress, and you feel very special. And as soon as I arrived, this was the first thing that they did for me. They said, "Oh, come, we're getting you fitted for your hanbok. Not do you want it? Would you like to buy one?" They just trotted me off. I didn't pick out anything. They chose the color for me that they thought would look nice on me, and it was a gift to me from them. So today I'm going to share with you about my time in South Korea as a student missionary and as an English language teacher. I will also share some of the Korean culture, just like Mrs. Maitland did. And then I'm going to give you some information on options that are available to you guys for mission service. And what's really neat is Mrs. Maitland has kind of already covered it, and I'll just give you some specific ideas. I'll give you some resources and stuff like that if you guys want to ask any questions. So at the end of every section, I'll stop and let you guys ask any questions. So if you have any questions, keep them, and then at the end, I have a few little things for you to try to eat, some things to taste. Some of them will be very common, and everybody's eaten it before, and some of it, it's available. It's all readily available in grocery stores around here, but some of the things maybe you've never tried before, they taste very different. Try to eat all the flavors that we're used to, and the smells. So when I was coming to the end of my college experience at Andrews University, just like Mrs. Maitland, I was a senior, and I was thinking, what do I want to do? You're coming to the end, and you're like, oh, what if, if you're not a doctor or nurse, you have to make your own path, right? And so I thought, well, I've heard of the student missionary program. I think I'd like to do that. I'd like to travel. I think it would be fun. And so I looked in the book that they have at Andrews University, and you could go into so many different places. You could go to Europe, you could go to South America, you could go to like the Philippines, Micronesia, and everything like that. And I thought, oh my, this is going to be wonderful. Oh, I don't even care what place I go to, as long as it's not the Marshall Islands or Korea. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah, why not?
Right. I don't know why. I had that in my head, and I says, no, I don't want to go there. I wanted to like maybe a Spanish-speaking country because I had studied Spanish, or Europe because that's where my ancestors are from, but no, Korea, please. And so I walked into the office where you can sign up, and there was a young man there working the office, and I said, oh, I'd like to go somewhere. He said, here's the book. And then we started chatting a little bit, and he said to me, well, there is an opportunity for a private school in Korea. It's run by a pastor in a church there. Would you be interested in that? And, you know, he started telling me about it, and it was different. It wasn't like the schools that are run by the General Conference. And so, one way or another, and I can't say that like Mrs. Maitland did, I can't say I spent a lot of time praying about it. I don't know if that was good or bad, but I believe that even when we don't spend a lot of time praying about it, if we have that relationship with God, He still guides us. He's very gracious and He's very merciful. And so guess what? When I graduated from Andrews University, where was I headed? I was headed to Korea. Exactly where I said I didn't want to go. And I graduated like a week or two later. I was on a plane. My parents gave me the plane ticket as my graduation present. And I got somebody to drive me from Andrews University, to Chicago, which is where the big airport is. And with my suitcase, and I actually stayed overnight in a house of the coordinator for the summer co-porter program. And that's where all of the summer co-porters were staying. And my boyfriend, you guys might guess who my boyfriend was at the time. Someone named Tom. He was in the seminary. He was co-portering for the summer, and he had just gotten back from a trip to Jerusalem for 3 months. And so he had gotten back the night before, and he had just come in to the same airport, and so we met that one day in this person's house, and I stayed overnight, and he took me to the airport the next day and shipped me off to Korea. Well, we hadn't seen each other for 3 months, and of course back then, you know, it was handwritten letters. The internet was just starting back then. So that was the internet, not all the social media apps and free long distance across the miles, none of that. If you wanted to talk to someone in another country, you paid lots and lots of money. And you sat on a phone that was attached to a wall. You didn't think I was that old, did you? And so, you know, we wanted to, you know, catch up and everything like that. And so we went, and it was in a nice neighborhood, and it was in June, and so we said, well, let's go for a walk. So we walked around the neighborhood, and you know, we hadn't seen each other for a long time, and so we just talked and talked and walked, and soon it got dark, but there was nice street lights, and when we came back to the house, everybody had gone to sleep and locked the door. And it was really late. We're like, oh, should we try to bang on the door and let them, you know, wake them up? And then we saw that the garage door was open. And so we went, and there were some chairs in the garage, so we went and sat in the garage until, you know, morning light came. And so neither of us got any sleep at all that night. And in the morning, you know, went in, got ready, and he saw me off to Korea. And of course, how long do you think the flight is from from Chicago to Seoul?
19 hours.
You're very close. What do you think? Yeah, it's somewhere in that range. What do you think?
I'm just gonna say 20 miles.
Yes, to be honest with you, I didn't even count it, because by the time you get there, you're losing time with all the time zones. You're either going to be going backward or forward across the international big line. So it totally messes you up. And so I flew from Chicago to the West Coast. I got on the plane, I sat down, and I went to sleep. I woke up, changed planes. I think I had one more layover in the United States. I sat down, went to sleep. And then I woke up, boarded the next plane, and that was to Seoul, Korea. We crossed the, I brought it, I'm gonna show it to you here, especially for the young ones here. Johnny, do you know where Korea is on the globe? Tell me, does anybody else know where it is on the globe? Who would like to? Okay, come on up here. And I'm going to spin it and come on over here so everybody can see. And I want you to show me where Korea is, and then of course we'll review and look where the United States is, and you can kind of see where both Mrs. Maitland and I traveled. Go ahead, on Korea for us.
Yo!
Yeah, very good. And can you see North Korea and South Korea? Yeah, and there are different colors on here. And so here we have it. There it is. And keep your finger on here and we'll go and just so everybody can see. Just put your finger where everyone can see. And of course we all know where the United States are. And right there in southwest Michigan is where Andrews University, and at the bottom of Lake Michigan is Chicago. So look at that. We flew from here to here, all the way over the Pacific Ocean and landed in Seoul, Korea. Thank you. And it was a long, long flight, but I had no recollection of it because I slept the entire way. And I woke up in Seoul, Korea, and it was late afternoon. And the pastor of the church who ran the institute came and picked me up. And I didn't send him a picture of me. You know, usually today you take a selfie of yourself, send it to him, and he'll recognize you in the airport. Back then, you know, you'd have to send it by snail mail. And but his son was going to Andrews Academy and Andrews University, and he had his son go look me up. I never met the young man, but he found a way. And he told his father what I looked like. He just described it, and amazingly it worked. And he looked at me, and he met, he was a quiet man, and he said, "Oh, you look like," he did a good job describing you. I picked you out of the crowd right away. You know, no one held up a sign or anything like that. And so he put everything in the car, we drove a little bit, and we stopped on the side of the road, and we got some noodles at a fast food noodle restaurant. And he didn't ask me what I wanted or anything, he just bought me a bowl of noodles and him a bowl of noodles. You know, it's kind of like ramen, everybody likes ramen, right? And we were standing around, you know, some kind of kiosk here, and he must have had to have a meeting that night, and we were 2 hours away from where he needed to drop me off. He slurped his noodles right up, and then he sat and looked at me, and I was eating my noodles, and he said, "Oh no, take your time." And so I slurped up my noodles as best I could, and we got the 2-hour drive from Seoul, Korea to Daejeon. Did you hear Mrs. Maitland mention Daejeon? Daejeon is a big city in Korea. It's, like I said, about 2 hours south of Seoul. Seoul is actually on the border of the North and South Korea. And so if you're in Seoul, you can easily visit the army base there, the demilitarized zone, and all that. And it's still there. Like she said, it's still a tragedy, because when the line was drawn and North Korea became a communist country, many families were split. And they had actually, in South Korea, which, you know, is a democratic republic, it's very similar to our government. They even have 3 branches of government with checks and balances like we do. They have this reality TV, even when I was over there 30 years ago, and they'll reunite the families, whether someone escaped from North Korea or something happened, and they would, you know, they bring them out on stage without telling them. You've seen TV shows and YouTube channels like that, right? And so this is what they did back then, and you could watch it, you know, watch it on TV when it was a popular show. So anyway, when I got to where I was going to be staying, the pastor took my big suitcase and he helped me carry it up 3 flights of stairs into the apartment building that I'd be staying with. And he said, you know, he knocked on the door and he said, your roommate will be Yona. Now this is the first time I've met him. We hadn't spent any time
in training or anything like that. They just said, just show up. At this time, when's your flight coming in? I will pick you up. There was no information whatsoever. And of course, had I ever been a student missionary before? No, so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know that there should be training or anything like that. And so we walked up there and he said, he introduced, we met my roommate, who was also another Western English teacher at the school, meaning a native language speaker. And he introduced us, and she was so excited to see me. She was from Trinidad, and she was actually had also been a student at Andrews University. And I realized she lived across the hall from me in the girls' dorm. And her schedule was so different, and so we never even saw each other. And she hugged me. She was the only English-speaking, native English-speaking teacher at the school. And so she was a little bit lonely. She had many friends, and the people were wonderful, but she was so happy to see me. She hugged me, and she came in. And the pastor said, "You will start teaching tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And Yona is a good teacher. She'll show you what to do. Goodbye." And so I said, oh my, I thought, oh, maybe I'd have a day or two to unpack and get a little sleep, and then 6 a.m. the next morning. And she did. She gave me the book. She told me what to do. She said, "You'll be fine." I said, okay. and I was. Thankfully, I had some experience with summer camp and interacting with kids. So the way that our language institute ran, which was called Sam Il, Wei Guk Wang Hagwan, and I don't have a good accent, but that's what it was. Sam Il is 3, 1. Sam is the word for 3, Il is the word for 1. At least they have 2 sets of numbers. And why do you think an Adventist language school that was designed to go and reach the community would have a name like Sam Il, 3, 1? Any ideas?
Like the Godhead?
Yeah, because they were trying to reach a community, obviously, like you said, that had temples everywhere. They do ancestor worship there. It's a free country, so all the Christian denominations are there, but they called it Samko. And I'll just give you a little brief description of it. It was run very similarly to the way that the school that Mrs. Maitland taught at, but we taught children, not university students and adults. So I had a 3rd grade class, a 4th grade class, a 5th grade class, and a 6th grade class, maybe twice a week. And that was in the afternoons. And of course, it was all based on their school schedule, right? They'd come out from school, and their mothers and fathers who were very interested in giving them success. And if you learned English, you were going to be successful, because it is the language of the world. Then as soon as you got out of class, out of school, instead of running home and playing, you went to your English class, or whatever it is, and this was their English class. And they also had the infamous 6 a.m. class. What if your afternoon was already booked up with piano lessons and soccer and tutoring for math and all these other things? Well, there was a 6 a.m. class that you could take your child to. And what do you think the kids look like at 6 a.m.? They would come in, and they would be falling asleep and everything like this. And so I had the 3rd through 6th graders in the afternoons, and then I had the 7th and 8th grade class in the morning, and then in the evening, from about 6 to 9, then I had other 7th and 8th grade classes. And the 3rd through 6th graders, they were, each was a different grade, and I had a different grade every week, every day of the week. And it was a huge class. There was at least 30 in each class. And of course, they can barely understand you. And the best way to teach kids when they can't understand you is to teach them songs. But if anybody, perhaps some of you know me a little bit. My son smiles. Mrs. Dombrowski can play the piano, but Mrs. Dombrowski can't sing. And so I had a hard time. Oh, they were rowdy and they were crazy, and I just kind of held my breath and made it through. but the 7th and 8th graders, you know, you guys this age, oh, I loved it. And I was able to kind of create my own curriculum. They gave me a book and I used it and I made other things. And it was a smaller class. We had maybe 12 to 15 kids instead. And they loved it and I loved it. And once they progressed, they had levels for the middle school children. Once you progressed and learned enough and passed the test, then you could go to the next level. And so I was only there for 6 months. Some of them I had through various levels, so I got to know them and everything like that. Another difference between our two schools and our two experiences, Mrs. Maitland and anyone who would volunteer for mission service through the Jeep General Conference, you get a stipend. And it's just enough to make sure that you can buy your toiletries and maybe travel a little bit. And then, of course, they give you an ajama to take care of you. And I think that they take care of your food for you. We were given a salary. And I had no idea what I was getting into, but, and it turned out to be a very good salary. The currency, does anybody know what the currency is in South Korea? Won. Very good. I had millions of won. Now, that wasn't millions of dollars, but I'll tell you this, this was the blessing here that God gave me, and I didn't even know I was getting into. By the time I finished 6 months of service there, I had saved up $5,000 or $6,000, and because I'm so frugal, I ended up being able to pay off all my student loans that I had acquired, which weren't a whole lot, while I was in college, before they became due. When you graduate from college, they give you 6 months grace period, at least back in my day. And then you have to start paying them back. And so, of course, I had 6 months of service in Korea, and I had saved up this money, and I said, oh, I had enough to pay off my student loans and a little extra to get me back, and I went back and did my master's degree. And this was God's blessing. This was God's blessing to me in that way. So, let me see if I shared everything else. We also preached on Friday night, like Mrs. Maitland said. And was it asked if you knew how to preach? No, just go. And of course, it was to a Korean Adventist church, a Friday night Vespers. And so you would preach and they would translate to make sure that everybody could hear. So you also had to learn to stop at the appropriate times and things like that. And that was a blessing. You had to prepare and be ready and get in your Bible, not just in your English language presentations during the week. And we also were expected to come, and we didn't have to teach them, but they expected us to come to the Bible classes on Sabbath afternoon that they had. We went to church in the morning with them, and in the afternoon, the Language Institute had Bible classes for kids, you know, just to give them Bible stories and things like that. And many, many non-Christians came to these because they were all in English and because they were on Sabbath. Do you think they charged for them? No, they were free, right? And so if your mama says, oh, there's free English classes, we will take advantage of these. Here, you're gonna go. And they went and heard all the beautiful Bible stories. And so we'd go from class to class, just visiting, and the other Korean teachers would be teaching them. But so we were, like Mrs. Maitland said, we were also busy all weekend, and they gave us time to travel and enjoy and see other things as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is share with you some of the culture. Maybe you know some of the Asian culture already, but before I move on to that, do you guys have any questions?
Do you speak
A little bit. I learned enough to go shopping at the marketplace. Omayo, how much? And I learned to count, because of course, when you ask how much, you need to understand what they're saying. It'll be some set, and I forget the rest. And I learned, just a few phrases. You know who I learned the most from? Was my students. You know how kids come into school? They run in, and they're talking to each other, And then what's the one phrase that like my whole family knows?
Kapshida.
Kapshida. Kapshida. Kapshida. It means let's go. And so when the class is done, all the kids are yelling, Kapshida. Let's go. Let's get out of here. And, or they're coming in and they're late or something and they're yelling to their friend, Kapshida. And finally I had to ask somebody, what does Kapshida mean? I hear it all the time. And I said, oh, it means let's go. And my roommate, who was there for only 6 months before me, and this is for you guys who want to learn a language, this is for you to listen to this. She was there for 6 months before me, and she was already, I wouldn't say her vocabulary was great, but she was fluent. Why do you think she was fluent? She didn't live with other English teachers. She lived with a Korean family. And she was home all day with the grandma. Because in Korea, all the family lives together, traditionally. Because that's, she was home when everybody else was going to school and gone when everybody else was home, because that's how language school works. And the grandma was so happy to have somebody there with her during the day. And the grandma spoke no English. And the grandma just chattered the whole day in Korea. And so she talked to my friend Yona all day long, and she insisted that she talk back to her. And she wasn't just gonna let her sit in some corner. And by the time that I arrived, which is when my friend Yona had been there for 6 months, we could get into a taxi in the evening, because it was in the city and we had to use public transportation to get everywhere. She could, with the lights off, she could tell the taxi driver where to go and just, say here, no, here, or whatever she needed to do. And then when she got out and went around to pay him and he saw her face, he would know, because she certainly didn't look Korean. And yet her Korean was flawless because she had learned it from listening to grandma. So that's the best way to learn a language. Any other questions before I tell you a little bit about the culture?
How old were you at this time?
I graduated from Andrews University when I was 22. And I turned 23 in September. I left in June. And I stayed there for 6 months. I was going to stay there for 12 months. I think it had something to do with my boyfriend, who was back in the United States. Pastor Tom. And, go ahead.
Were they like Christian, or did they have a certain religion?
There was everybody there. It's very much like the United States. Obviously, totally different culture, but as far as government and freedoms, it's very much like the United States. And if you actually look here, for you guys who do geography, it's the same latitude. And so even though Korea is right on the ocean, and usually oceans affect the climate, it's a very similar climate to the United States, or at least in Michigan, where I was from. Hot summers, probably a little more hot and cold than where I grew up in Michigan, but very hot in the summer, very cold and dry in the winter. And they have monsoons because of where it's located. The rain comes and you can't go outside, even with an umbrella, without getting soaked.
Also, I might steal that robe, it's pretty.
It was a gift to me. All right, can I answer your question?
Yes.
And any others? I'll take one more before I just give you a little bit of little snippets of Korean culture, and then I'll share with you some ways that you can try this if you like it.
What's the conversion rate?
What was that?
Conversion rate from won to US dollars.
Right now, the won is less. Like $1 is, I should have looked up the rate of exchange.
She was
Okay.
100,000 dollars.
Yeah.
7,001 for like
Yeah.
$100.
Yeah, because when I got paid, and if I can save up $6,000 in 6 months, in addition to paying, we paid for our own food, we did our own grocery shopping, we did everything, and we paid for our own phone bill, which of course I had my boyfriend in the States, and so I would spend a lot on my phone bill. And of course for travel and things like that. Yeah, I should have looked it up, but I got paid in millions of won, and that was thousands, a couple $1,000s a month, or something like that. Yeah, so, thank you for the insight there. All right, so you ready for a little bit of Korean culture? And I'll just give you the little, list here. When you go in a house, what do you do with your shoes?
Take them off.
And, they sleep on the floor with only a very thin mat. Sometimes, if you get put on the floor, they give you some kind of air mattress or something else. Just, something like this, little quilted mat, and one over you, and that's it. And they also eat on the floor with a very low table. And guess what? The floors are heated. That's how they keep their house. And I went to someone's house, and they invited us over for mushroom harvest because they were mushroom farmers. And we all sat around this big table on the floor. And it was chilly, so they had the heat up. And I was like, I had to move this side and this side because it was so hot. Or maybe I was on a hot spot on the floor, who knows? But everything is done on the floor. When you go out to eat, each Korean restaurant, and they do have Western restaurants, even back then, there was KFC, there was McDonald's, you could get pizza and everything like this. But the Korean restaurants only served one dish. Like if you wanted, if it was like this in the United States, if you wanted to eat lasagna, you go to the lasagna restaurant. And there's no ordering, you just sit down, they put it before you. The only thing they ask you is if you want 7-Up or Coke or water. And yes, Koreans do eat, maybe not Adventists, but the Korean cultures, they do eat dog meat. And just like pork or bacon here, it's an unclean meat, right? But does our culture eat unclean meats? Unfortunately, yes, right? And they also eat, and I've read it's kind of going out of fashion or whatever. But back when I was there, you could go to the open market and see this. They eat insects, like grasshoppers, which are clean. Yeah. Right? Anything that hops is clean. And you can see at the open market these big piles of caterpillars and stuff, and you look at it. No, they'll eat silkworm pupas.
Oh yeah, and then like
And
put in a soup or something.
that's the one that looks like a caterpillar or something like that, but they do, they have a special, I have for you, traditional Korean food today to taste,
The dog.
but I don't have any insects for you. And Mrs. Cross is very grateful for that. They're all dead, they don't pop off. They're all cooked before you eat them. All right, some of their manners with each other. You never shame anyone. And that is, shaming is making them look bad. You lie before you shame somebody, or before you are shamed. And this applies for everybody, not just non-Christians. I learned the hard way with one of my students, because you don't want to make somebody look bad in front of the crowd. And I mentioned something, I was trying to instruct and I didn't do it the right way, and I learned the hard way. The way you show someone honor when you're giving something to someone, so I would go give it to Mrs. Cross, because I'm gonna show honor to her, so I would go like this. I put my hand under my elbow, and this is just passing things around. This is not like at a public gathering or a fancy event. And I'd smile, because she's older than me, and she's in charge, and she's honored because she's a teacher. So I put my hand under my elbow and I give it to you. And I thank you. Take it back. If you give somebody some food or anything like that. Let's see what else here. Oh, what things you don't do, if you've heard of this. If I want my son, that's what I would do if I wanted to get his attention, right? Not say anything. Over there, You don't do that. That's like kind of in the same part as giving someone the middle finger. It's not an insult, but this is how they summon a prostitute. So what you do instead of this, you go, come, you know, come Johnny, come over here. You do this instead of this, and that's something that they told us. What do you guys like to do with friends when you go out? Or what do Americans like to do with friends when they go out? Play soccer, right? Anybody else? Go shopping, right? Well, in Korea, what?
What me and my friends like to do as a Korean friend, we like to go to different Korean spots and eat Korean food.
Oh, I need to get together with you. Because that's one thing I learned to enjoy was eating Korean food.
Like every month or something, we'll go out to eat together. Just me and her, like our parents will drop us off at like this restaurant with money, and then me and her will just go. Me and her will eat as much food as we want. Enjoy that and happy.
No. In a few minutes, I'm going to ask you what you order, but let's finish this part first. Well, Koreans, when they get together, especially, teenagers and young adults, they like to climb mountains. And it's where you take your date.
Oh.
And it's of course, friends will go too and things like that. It's not like a Sabbath afternoon, the Sabbath afternoon activity too, but this is what young people will do. They will go climb a mountain, and Korea is very mountainous. And so there's always a mountain here to climb or a mountain there to climb. And the ladies, of course, when you're going out with your friends, especially if there's members of the opposite sex, you want to look nice. So the girls get all dressed up, and they will wear heels and walk up a mountain. Yeah, and you look at them like, but they make it up. Right. They also like to go to noraebang. Heard of noraebang? Karaoke. And they have these karaoke places, and they're little rooms, and they have the karaoke machine, and you choose which song you want to sing along. It's all the pop songs, and it has the words, and of course the background music, the track, and then the little dot that shows you where, and you just belt it out and sing, and that's what they like to do with friends. Or they like to go to a tea shop, and there's so many different tea shops, and you just go in there and sit there and get tea with your friends. And this is what someone gave me when I left. And this would be similar to what they would serve you the tea in. And you can go to different styles of tea shops. If you want more of a outdoorsy one or more of a cute feminine one, they just have all these different kinds of tea shops. So that was another thing that they liked to go to do together. Popular tourist activity is visiting all the temples. And these are the Buddhist temples or the temples that engage in ancestor worship there. However, there is, like I said, a large Christian population, large Adventist population, and many different denominations. It's a free country. Holidays in the United States, and you would tell me if you agree with me or not. Christmas is kind of for the family, and New Year's is where they have a party and you go out.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the opposite in Korea. New Year's is for the family. It's very part of their long-standing tradition, and everybody gets together. And Christmas is this, this Western tradition that they just imported because everybody's doing it. And you do something with your girlfriend, you go to a party or something like that. I already shared with you about the government. The government is very similar to Korea. They're very proud and defensive of their freedoms that they have. They have a judicial branch, they have a legislative branch, and then they have the executive branch with the checks and balances. And we're not going to go into a government lesson today, but that just means that they have a constitution that gives them freedom. And one of the Korean pastors told my husband, whenever the government starts to get too oppressive, the people will stand up and fight. And he said there always has to have somebody dies, meaning they're serious about it. And because of this, Korea is a good place to live, at least South Korea. All right, let me show you. Just one more thing, and then I'll be done here. Do we hear a lot about immigrants and immigration here in the United States?
Yes.
Yes. Right. And how many of you have parents who were born outside of the United States, right? My grandparents were that, were that, generation. So you guys understand. Well, when you're a student missionary, you are the alien, as the Bible says. The Bible talks about aliens. They don't mean green people from Mars, from outer space. They mean people who are living in a country where they didn't grow up, where their family didn't grow up. And so when I came to Korea, I think you asked about the taxes and stuff like this. You know, you get a visa that you can work with, they tell you what to do, and they take care of all the paperwork and help you, so you don't have to wonder. But I ended up with this. This is called a certificate of alien registration. I mean, I have my passport. You don't believe me, huh? Alien registration. See? Yeah.
You should put down the green letters.
And here was my picture. And it basically wherever I went, you know. It was my first, they took a shot of me as soon as I got there, so this is, I was. Still have brown hair, you take this with you, and so wherever you are, these are your papers. Does anybody have a bank account? Do you ever go see what your parents do when they go to the bank to either deposit money or to get money out? What do you have to do?
Sign it.
Yeah, usually if you have to have some kind of, I mean, you can do it all online now, but if you're gonna go and do it the paper way, you have a deposit slip and you have to sign your name, right? Or when you're getting a loan, you gotta sign your name, right? When you're gonna go into school, you gotta sign your name on all those papers, or at least your mom and dad did. So, in Korea, you don't sign your name, they make you a stamp, and this is my signature. You see the bottom of it? So you stick it, you know, so you bring it in, and they take it, they put it in the ink, and then they stamp. Oh, I'd love to. You see that? And so it's not exactly like, it's like cursive Korean. No, it's interesting. Yeah, see it, Johnny? And can anybody, my first name is Sandra. So what do you think you guys wanna pass it on the back real quick, just so it comes back? What do you know what they called me? Because they really don't have an R sound in Korean. Yeah, very good. You got a knack for sandala. Sandala.
She's a Korean slip.
Yeah, I know.
And so I think that those, they write the Korean in syllables. I think those 3 syllables are on there. I learned to read Korean a little bit. It's very simple to read, but I didn't become good at it. I didn't put enough effort to it, and I wasn't doing well enough. All right. So really quickly, I also, like Mrs. Maitland, had a great time. I had many wonderful memories. I learned a little bit of the language. I learned to eat with chopsticks. And before I give you your taste, if you're interested in tasting it, I will show you the proper way to eat everything that I'll show you. And I never really slept on the floor. I didn't want to do that. I made many friends. Some of them came to visit me once I came back. And we were even able to give, my roommate and I were even able to give one of our non-Christian friends who we made. She was a girl just our age, you know. I don't know how we met her. I think it was Yona's friend, but we presented her with a Bible with her name on it before we left. Yes, and another blessing, it was a financial blessing, but another blessing, and Mrs. Maitland talked about this too. So I encourage you guys to think, I'll get back to think about doing some kind of mission service, because it does, it expands you in so many ways, but it helps you, at least it helped me, decide what I wanted to do. Do all of you know what you want to do when you grow up? You're all sure? You think it'll stay the same for the next 5 years? Some of you are shaking your heads. So we're no, and so I'm like, and that's how it is. Some of us are sure they know what to do, and they do it. Others, I don't know. It helped me decide what I wanted to do, and I think it did a pretty good job too, because of my time. I had graduated with an English degree, and I thought, what do I want to do with this? You can go literature and teach. You can do writing and write. You can do writing and teach. You can do ESL like Mrs. Maitland did. Somehow, taking the time off for 6 months and teaching, I ended up choosing writing and teaching writing. And guess what I'm still doing today? I'm still writing and I'm still teaching writing. So it was a good decision, and God blessed me. And to be honest with you, I took all my experience teaching, and if you can teach, like, you know, arriving at 6 p.m. and having to teach at 6 a.m. with no training, do you think it's hard to teach a class full of high schoolers? No, not a problem. you had all, it gave me all kind of teaching experience, which was very valuable as I went out into my career. And last thing here, before I share with you some opportunities for you, being a student missionary, you know, it sounds like, you know, you're holy, right? Because you're a missionary. You're just one of these people who, you know, you've arrived. Doesn't it sound like it? If you're gonna be a missionary? Oh, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Being a student missionary gives you the opportunity to learn and grow and trust God more, because you're in all kinds of interesting situations, as well as the culture shock that Mrs. Maitland talked about. But it's not gonna change your character. It doesn't mean who you are. What's the only way that your character is gonna be changed? Time, life experiences. Those are interesting. Does anybody know what the Bible says? Jesus is the only one, the power of God is the only one who can change your character. So someone could go through mission experience and do all these things and still come back the same heart they left with. However, if when you enter these experiences, you are willing to let God take those experiences and shape you, then you will come home changed. But God is the one who does it, not the missionary experience. My mother told me when I returned, she was looking at me like, I wonder if Sandra is going to be different. She thought, oh, she's going to be different because she went overseas and became a missionary. And she said, what do you think she saw when I came back? Yes. She said, oh, she's still Sandra. And I don't know whether that was good or bad, but she still loves me. She still loves me. All right. So, you guys have any questions? I'll take like 2, and then I'm going to share with you some opportunities that have kind of come up already, and then we'll do the food. Any questions? I'll take 2.
Wait, so like, do different countries use like the chopsticks differently? Like Korea, China, Japan, or is it all the same?
That's a good question. Each of them has, and I'm stepping out on this one, but the little bit of information that I remember, each of them have chopsticks and like a spoon, because all the cultures eat soup.
No, but I mean like how they use it. Do they use it differently? Or?
I don't think so. You know, there's one way to use chopsticks, and it's the easiest. But they do have, each culture has a little variation. You know, the spoon or whatever that the Chinese use, or the Japanese, or the Korean are slightly different. I don't have, like the Korean, I'll show you their silverware, their dinner serving. The only thing I don't have is the spoon. And they'll use the chopsticks, put them in this finger, and then use the spoon, you know. And just because you're Korean doesn't mean that you can use chopsticks well. I had a Korean friend that we became close with over there, And she said, oh, don't look at me, I don't use them right. And here she was, she grew up in Korea and she couldn't use chopsticks. She said, 'cause she was just kind of pushing the food around with it and getting it in her hand. But that's a fun story. And one more question to take, and then I've got to share with you. Anybody? Okay.
What was your favorite type of chocolate drink?
I don't think I had any favorite tea. And even though they do go out for tea, I think I went like once or twice the whole time I was there. But I didn't do enough tea to come up with a favorite, or even to tell you like that kind of stuff. I'm sure they do like green teas and stuff like that, but yeah, I would have, I don't have anything. Okay.
Would you go again? If you had
Yeah, I actually miss it, and I'd like to go back and visit. Of course, it'd be different since I'm an adult and I have a family now and things like that. But, yeah, I enjoyed it, and I do. And I was interested in what you said about Korean restaurants, because every so often I get this deep desire, and I'm not a person who gets like this kind of stuff, I don't get pangs and stuff. But for Korean food, every so often I get a really taste for like, oh, I could just have some Korean food. Best way to do it is to visit a Seventh-day Adventist Korean church and go to their potluck.
Did you know, fun fact, there's a Korean restaurant in North Korea that you fish for your own salmon?
I think I'm gonna tell my son, who you're gonna meet in a few minutes, about that. That's the kind of stuff he likes to do, fish.
Because you go to this restaurant and they have like a pond, you can like fish for your own crab and like fish and like tiny fish, and then they take it for, you get like certain tokens and you get to spend those tokens on how much fish you get, and then whatever fish you catch, you pay that, it'll tell you a price, you pay that much for them to cook that fish, the fresh fish for you, and then you can eat it right off the grill, and they cook it in front of you.
Wow, that sounds exciting. So there are many opportunities out there. So there's more than two kinds of mission opportunities, but you saw two of them today with Mrs. Maitland's presentation. One is the student missionary program. You can take, and adults can do this. If you go on the website that I've got here, it's called www.hesaidgo.org. No caps, obviously. And this is a GC, a General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventists. It's the Office of the World Seventh-day Adventist Church. But this one I think is for just the North American division. They have a whole list of mission opportunities that you can go for like 1 year. And the age range, is anybody 18 here? 17? Will be shortly. Yeah. The age range for the kind of things that Mrs. Maitland and I did are from 18 to 79.
Whoa.
Mrs. Cross, there's still an opportunity for us to go back and do it. And like I said at the beginning, there's all kinds of opportunities. And what kids like to do, what students like to do is that they can take a year off of college. Either, I did mine at the end, but some will take a year off in between. Sometimes the students will be like, oh, I've had enough, or I don't know what I want to do, or I just need a break from this. They'll take a year off and come back. And especially in the Adventist colleges, they'll work with you with that. And it's easy to get out of your program and back into it. But what was the second kind of missionary opportunities, which you guys, I don't know where they draw the line. Maybe Johnny would have to have his mom and dad come with him, but the teenagers, the second presentation that Mrs. Maitland made was a short-term mission trip. Has any of you gone on a short-term mission trip? That's just like, it can be maybe a week or two, and they go to a foreign country, and they build a building, or they'll repair something, or they'll go and help a hurricane-ravaged area, or they will go and do a share him evangelistic series. And that's something that our conference does every year, the Southern New England Conference. The Adventist Church in this area, the youth leaders organize, there's 2 mission trips every year. This year, I think they're going to Peru, and, anyway, so I'm leaving this here. I think Mrs. Cross already has this information, but we have, this is the conference website. If you go on there and look under events, you'll see what's coming up. Here is, and there's a link here toward the youth department as well as the youth and clubs department. And each of them have their own mission project every year that they go on. And so if you guys like this idea of going to travel somewhere interesting and different, you can do it when you're a teenager. And let's talk about the money real quick, because that came up today. They're really expensive. You have to pay more than just your airfare to get there, because you're paying for some of the mission work that is being done. What happens if your parents don't have tons of money? What do? I've seen our local churches sponsor kids. And if someone hears that a young person wants to go on a mission trip, sometimes people will come up and say, here, I will help. Let me help. And so I think Mrs. Cross, even your kids, you make a presentation at the front and say, I'm going, will anybody help me? And you know what? Have they ever said no? No. So don't worry about money keeping you from serving God and traveling and having new experiences. You step out and God will provide, and you will be blessed in many ways, and you will be a blessing to many people as well. I'll leave this here. You don't need it with Google, but I'll leave it here anyway. And I'll give another minute or 2 for questions, and then I'm going to show you. You guys can come over here. I'll show you how to eat, and you guys can try it if you like. Any questions? Food, right?
Yes.
Yes. Let's go. And if you have
Thank
any
you.
questions, before I end, if anybody is remotely interested in a writing career and want to see how to make it work, it can work. Feel free to talk to me afterward, because I will be here for the next. I'll be here until.
What's your, wait,